Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. We'd like to be able to get started with the meeting, and since we're going to do the tour first, I think we'll go ahead and get started right away, and then go right into the tour. So,
Excuse me, do you mind if have the meeting and then the tour? There's some of us that have other things to do, if you don't mind.
I mean, if anybody has any objection to it, I mean, I don't know.
You want to do the meeting first and the tour?
Yes, because there's some of us that have the other commitments.
Well, the meeting's probably going to take about an hour.
That's fine.
So would you rather miss the tour?
I'd miss the tour.
Okay.
Any objection by anyone?
Fine, I'm just not sure when we tour and our filming people are following us outside, it starts to get dark. I don't know whether that'll be an issue or not. I'm not sure.
If it's within an hour, we can still do it. If it gets later, then we'll have to come.
Okay, and also we do have visitors from the principals and staff that when we get to that school, to answer questions, so forth. Mr. Harris, is it okay if you wait a little while?
Yes, sir. Whatever you say.
Thank you.
Okay, then we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we've taken the attendance. We're going to reset the tour number 3 down to skipping number 3, putting that number, actually number 8A. We'll drop it down to 8A. And we'll go ahead and skip the recess, reconvene. And we'll go to item number 4, which is a presentation and update of the bond projects. And Mr. Tapia?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Barbosa. We'll go ahead and get started with the meeting. The first project on the list is the high school. And just to update you on the high school, they're coming along very, very fast, very, very aggressive on the schedule. As per contract, May of 2010 is the contract date. The schedule that the contractor is telling us right now is they're projecting finishing, if not late December, early January. A very aggressive schedule, but if they can meet that, well, so be it. And then at that time, we'll have to decide whether we want to accept it at that time. Because once we accept it, it's ours. We have to have security, maintain the yards, pay all the utilities, and so forth. But we probably won't be able to move in probably, May, June, start bringing in furniture and things like that. So at that time, we'll decide, do we want to accept it or not, and what responsibilities does the contractor have of trying to get, if I'm finished, why should I keep paying the utilities? But we'll face that issue. That's a good problem to have, not a bad problem. So the courtyard, some of the pergolas in the courtyards. We've never had a school with these kind of seating areas with shaded areas, landscape patios, landscaped trees in the courtyards, lighting, and so forth. The brick pavers in the courtyards. That's a tennis court that's been finished. It's got the lighting, the fencing. All they need is the actual green surface that they put on top of that, the plain surface. The parking lots are ready. They've been rolled and regraded. They're ready to take the tack oil and get the asphalt on. And the parking lot lights are in place. Some of the lockers already in place in the athletic areas. The gym floor, the flooring materials already arrived. They've actually cranked on one of the chillers to start air conditioning the gym, because they have to acclimate. The air conditioning system takes the moisture out of the air, dries it up a little more, and the wood has to get acclimated to the temperature. You can't dry it too quick. You have to slowly, they start off at, let's say, 82, A few days later, they bring it down to 80, and then 78, and then to the temperature that the school's going to be at, so that the wood can acclimate to the temperature of the operating hours, so that you don't get a lot of warping in the wood. So they've already started that process. The high school on the architect fee was $2.7 million. We've paid $2.5, so there's still about $130,000 left. So they're 95% complete overall. The contractor, Deal Wilson Construction, the contract was $59 million plus. We've paid $47.7 million, $11 million pending. So they're at 80% complete, but remember that we take out 5% of retainage that we're holding, so they're really more like 86, 87%. Let's say 86%. Before I leave the high school, at the last meeting, we had some questions about the water issue. Those of you that have the booklet, if you could turn to page 1. You asked for a breakdown of what was involved in the $285,000 that PUB proposed. And there's a comparison sheet that was taken to the School Board of Trustees already. There was a recommendation made to award to PUB for the water supply. And that's on page 1, $285,000. I presented this at the last meeting, but I think there's some of you that were not here. I misstated, to clarify Mr. Hansen's question, wanted a breakdown on the engineering fees. I made an assumption it was all engineering, but I got that wrong. PUB is doing the engineering in-house, and they're doing all their labor in-house. So the $285 is really just to buy the materials, all the pipe and the connections and other related things that go into it, some surveying, some testing and backfilling, things like that. So $285 is strictly materials. And then we have to pay water rights. There's a reimbursement cost to a developer that paid up to the point where we're going to tie in some meter taps for irrigation and the main line, $467,562, where Valley Mud number 2 was at almost at $1.4 million. And this is option 2, which is the lower requirements versus the 1,100 gallons per minute and 40 pounds per square inch, versus option A, which was 3,500 gallons, so 3 times the amount at 30 psi. Even at that other option, PUB would have been at the exact same price, because their 16-inch line is probably going to take care of both options, but they're going to be very close, possibly, instead of 3,500, maybe 2,800, 3,000, maybe 3,200, maybe even meeting the 3,500. It's going to be very close. They'll definitely be way over the 1,100 GPMs that we're asking for. Where Valley Mud, to meet the higher standards, 3 times the amount of water, was actually at $2.5 million. But we went with this option. Either way, PUB's price is the same way. So to us, it was a no-brainer to recommend them. We do have representatives of PUB here if there's any questions. On page 2, there's a little bit detailed breakdown. Basically, the RFQ called for public lines where we're going to turn them over to PUB for them to own the lines and maintain them and so forth within our property. If for some reason we decide to keep the lines and make them private, then there's an extra $40,000 charge, so it'll pick it up to $478. But we're definitely going with the public route, so that's not an issue. There was also some concerns about, well, what happens in the future when there's growth and there's more connections and more houses? How does that affect our water volume and water pressures, and can other people tap in? And there was a lot of questions about that. On page 3, I included a copy of the water distribution model that PUB submitted as part of their proposal. And basically, the proposal that I prepared out of my office, the top part, they quoted straight from the proposal where we asked for the water companies to submit an engineering report stating that the water supplier can meet the design criteria and information as to the supplier's long-term plans regarding the water distribution model, fire flow conditions in and around the high school for the next 15 to 20 years. In other words, as land development grows, and that's on your first paragraph there, at the bottom of that first paragraph, as land development grows in the area, what effects will it have on the proposed water distribution system and on the water pressures and fire flow design criteria stated in your design criteria that we stated in there. That's a question we asked in our proposal. Their answer is right below it. And basically, they're saying they can meet both options A and B. And both options can be met by the year 2010, provided a 16-inch water line is installed, which they're going to do. And the year 2025 will mark the period for system improvements, where they're going to make some more major upgrades. They have a 2007 water and wastewater master plan that they're working on that's already modeled. It's planned for the future. It's not like we don't know what's going to happen when it grows, what's going to happen. Well, it's in their plan. They already have one. On page 5 is the actual engineering report from Shea Rolson, which is the engineering company of AECOM that did the water master plan for PUB. And basically, they analyzed this whole proposal, and they're saying they can meet both criterias as part of their 2010 water and wastewater master plan. They did their population projections based on the U.S. Census 2006 as a base mark, and then plan for future growth from there. That's basically what that page says. And then it refers you to the actual report that was in the proposal. I put it there on page, the next page is stamp page 6, which is their page 2. And it's a very detailed report, very technical. I'm not going to sit here and read through it because most of us won't understand it. There's stuff I don't understand. But basically, the important part is on the table there, 2010, that they're estimating the average daily demand of water is 103 gallons per minute. By 2015, 279 gallons per minute. And by the year 2025, 361 gallons per minute. So they've taken all these things into account. Even if we don't meet the growth, they've planned for it. So it's taken care of. We feel very comfortable with the report. Pages 6, 7, 8. If you go to page 8, which is their page 4, on the year 2010, in the top of the table, it calls for the criteria that we asked for 30 PSI. They're calculating 36 PSI, so they're way above it. If we want option A, we go to option B, which is 40 PSIs, they'll be at 47. And we created these minimum pounds per square inch working with our fire department. The state law minimum requirement is 20 PSI. But if we try to stick to just 20, then in the future, or as people use it, it's possible we can go below the 20 if there's a fire, and then you can cause problems with cavitation in the lines and things like that. So we doubled the amount of water pressure that is mandated by the state. And their models, even up to the year 2025, they're still below the pressures that we're asking for. And this is their engineering model based on their master plan for that area. I hope that answers the questions that was asked last time by some of the members of this committee. Is there any more questions on,
Mr. Chairman.
On whether PUB can, you feel comfortable? Mr. Butch?
Mr. Chairman.
There's a question by Mr. De Leon.
May I ask a question? No, not the question. I'd like to take an opportunity to thank the PUB Board of Directors for making it possible to work with BISD and save the taxpayers some money. And I want you to, PUB representative, to also thank Mr. Bruziak for working and making this possible. Thank you.
Any other concerns about the water supply bid that we're recommending to the board? Well, we already recommended to the board and they approved it, but this is not, this RFP wasn't for general contractors. This is a proposal by another taxing entity, or by PUB, which is another municipal type of entity. So we're going to enter into an interlocal agreement with them, which requires board approval. So we're going to the August 18th board meeting for the contract for approval. So there might be more questions from the board. So whoever's going to make a presentation from this committee to the board, you can state that you've discussed it. If you all feel comfortable, if there's any concerns, you can bring it up as well.
Okay, there's another question that's been asked of me several times in the past, and I just failed to bring it up. And I'm sure some of you have heard it before. Why was the school building not facing the Highway 281 instead of facing the other way, the front?
Because we don't own the land in front of a school. The land that fronts on Military Highway was kept by the owner of the property that sold us So we have access on Old Carmen, which is the street going in that we're actually going to construct. We've already awarded that bid. That's our frontage. We don't have frontage on Military Highway. And so we turn the school facing Military Highway, we're going to be facing the backs of the businesses that develop on Military Highway. It would not have been a very good, aesthetically pleasing
Well, that was a question.
view.
I'm sure some of you have heard it before. I just failed to bring it up several meetings ago. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
You have a question on the floor, or any concerns concerning this project?
Not at the meeting. It was approved without any questions, but there was some concerns a day or two later after the meeting from one of the board members asking for more information, that they did have some concerns that somebody brought to them. But if there's any questions, they'll be brought up at the next meeting when we review the local agreement. And we'll address any concerns. I'll invite PUB to be there as well to answer any concerns they may have.
Oscar, I know PUB started construction already?
No,
And
until we get the agreement approved at the next board meeting.
Okay, and it's going to
Interlocal.
be ready when the high school open? And the water's going to be ready?
They have in their proposal 75 calendar or working days? 90 days. 90 count, 3 months, so it'll be finished by November, early
So
December.
it should be complete?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Tapia, on the proposal for the 10-inch water line to be upgraded to a 16-inch on both Bassler and west of Alton Gore, was that recommended by the engineering group, or was that BISD that said we want 16-inch line?
No, that was all proposed by the PUB and consulting engineers and their in-house staff. If there's no further questions in that matter, I'd like to address the next item here on page 12. There was some concerns about why the line was being run there, who was it going to benefit, and things like that. And there was some information that was given to this committee that wasn't exactly accurate. I think a lot of it was based on maybe some rumors or innuendos and so forth. The facts that I know of is the subdivision developer immediately west of us. If you're on Military Highway looking at school on the left of us, there's a 40-acre tract that's owned by Union Design Developers. Just west of them is where the main water line from Valley Mud runs from Rancho Viejo to Riverbend to that water tower. So we couldn't get to that line from there. We'd have to go back all the way Military and back all the way around. It would have cost us more money. On the sewer, we're going to run the sewer line, the lift station's in the back of the property. We need to cut through that property again to head north to the other lift station we're going to pump to. So we really needed the help of the landowner adjacent to us to get an easement to go through their property. It just so happened at the same time the developer is getting ready to develop their land. And they also were interested at that time PUB wasn't anywhere near there. They wanted to tie into the sewer system we're going to build and the water line from Valley Mud. So this is a copy of an agreement that we already took to our school board, and the school board approved it. And basically what this agreement says is that they're going to give us, if not we'd have to buy the easement from them, they're going to give us the easement, a 20-foot easement, 15 or 20-foot easement, I forget what it is, at no cost to the district, but they want permission to tie into the sewer line, the lift station, whenever we finish it. Of course, the cost of the lift station is a lot more expensive than just the easement. So what they proposed is, if you go on page 13, on section 2 at the very bottom of that paragraph, that upon, that paragraph basically says that, and there was some engineering calculations done by their engineers and our engineers on how much usage they would have on their residential subdivision into that lift station versus what the school's going to dump into the lift station. And we came up back and forth. We finally agreed on, they wanted 18%, we wanted 25%, so we agreed on 20%. The developer is going to pay us 20% of the value of the lift station. We bid that lift station out and awarded a contract for $228,584. So when we finish, and to give them permission to connect, they have to pay us 20%, which is $45,716. So we really only paid $182,000. And also, as other developers tie in on the north, we'll also get some money back. So that sewer system is going to cost us very little money, maybe half or a quarter of the cost. This is the, there was comments made last time that PUB was running this line for the benefit of this developer. Well, this document clearly tells you they're going to tie into the Valley Mud sewer line, not PUB. So that story to me didn't hold any water or sewer. Either or. And then on page 15, 16 is the actual easement that they've already granted to us. So the contractors already ran their lines in the easement, the water line, and they're going to start the sewer line pretty soon. So all that's in movement, and all that tells me the developers, it's right there. Everything's for them. They don't want to pay PUB not to extend it all the way to their subdivision. It's cheaper for them just tying in there. So I hope that answers the concerns that some of these committees had based on the other report that was given you in public input by someone else. This answers a lot of the questions that kind of contradict what that gentleman was saying.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question? Who heads the union design developers? Are they local?
They're out of Monterrey, I understand.
Monterrey.
So there's no other questions. That's where we are in the high school. And we can proceed. Keller Elementary and Manzano Middle School. We're making some progress. At the last meeting I reported there was some concerns with some problems with the architectural designs, the contractor having problems. And so just to let you know what we've been doing, on page 19 of your report, there was a letter sent to the principal architect in charge of these plans, the one that actually sealed the drawings, is responsible out of the San Antonio office for the Valley office, basically sending them a letter, putting them on notice that we got problems, we need to meet. We met on March 31st to address these issues. 2.5 months have gone by and we haven't heard anything from you. The contractor's still complaining about not getting what he needs. So we had a meeting. And that's the letter I sent to them requesting the meeting and what some of our concerns were. I don't know if you want time to read that or if you have questions on it. I basically just said there's problems, we need to meet, and on page 20 in the middle there I said before our meeting we expect to receive a written report from you containing final figures for the required change orders. It is my assumption based upon what I have heard from all parties involved that your firm's input thus far that these change orders are necessitated by the inadequacy and or inaccuracy of the plan specs prepared by your firm. If you contend you're not responsible, please give us a written explanation why you don't think it's your fault. And we also want to know what you think you should be held responsible for and paying. So that's something that we're going to discuss. So we had the meeting on page 21, that's the email. I wanted to meet on a Wednesday. They couldn't meet Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and kind of felt we were getting the runaround. So finally, the following Monday, I said, we need to meet Monday, whether you can make it or not, or send a representative from one of your other partners. So finally on Monday we met, and I again reiterated what we expected out of that meeting and saying some of the same things I sent them in that memo. So we had the meeting, and we went over several items. I don't have anything concrete for you because the final change orders haven't been prepared, and we still don't know some of the final numbers. But I'll just give you a quick little scenario. I don't want to hand anything out. It was just some scribbling. But they brought a list of some of the concerns that they had of the contractor was asking for certain things, and the architect says, well, give me a price, what it would take to change these items. So the contractor had given them some cost proposals. There was about a dozen items that we went over, which totaled $453,000 worth of potential change orders. So we went one by one, and by the time we were done, we were down to about $122,000 of potential change orders. For example, the electrical system that they said had to be totally redesigned, the whole switch gear, pretty much eat what was bought. We had to buy a new system and upgrade it. That was going to be about $150,000. All of a sudden, it turned out after the reviews, the engineers reviewed it in detail that No, we think it's going to work now. What caused the problem, there was two big AC units that had these heating elements. It required a lot more power. So if you add that to the system, it would have overloaded it. So that's why we're trying to upgrade it. But you can do that easily by adding 2 sub-panels to it with the main switchgear breakers strictly for those 2, and you can tie it in and it works the same way. So all of a sudden now, when we tell them you're going to pay for it, they found a solution. So to add those 2 breaker panels with the cutoffs on those, it's about, they're estimating $15,000 to $20,000. So might be some cost, but it's not $150,000. A lot of mechanical. So some of those things we talked about. A lot of them we don't have information yet, but on the next page, on page 24, out of what resulted from that meeting, there was 4 items that we did agree upon. They were small items. This is a draft. We haven't sat down to go over it yet, but this is more or less what it's going to look like for these 4 items. There's a few more items. We'll either add them to this or do a separate change order. CPR number 9, R-14R, that's number 1 for $1,316. Some louver duct changes because of what was there didn't work, and they had to reroute it, break it up in 2 pieces, and redo some mechanical systems. $1,316, and everyone agrees that needs to be done. On the parentheses, it says the architect offered to pay 10% of that, which turns out to be $131. The next item is for some piping layout on the chiller yards. Because of where the main electrical transformer is, PUB required certain access around it with their vehicles to service it, and they didn't have access to it. So the 2 chillers one had to be moved up, further up, and the other one had to move over to the side. So there was a lot of piping changes, and that's going to result in about a $5,000 change order, $4,800. So 10% of that, $483, that the architect says, well, we'll pay 10% because we're partially at fault. Although on this one they said, well, we didn't know PUB had those requirements, so that's really no one's fault, but we'll still pay 10%. That's what they're offering.
Whose obligation is to know that, Mr. Tapia?
A lot of that, the engineer, and that's what happens when you get engineers that are from out of town that are not familiar with your local utility company. Sometimes they don't know all the requirements. So they design it the way they design it up in their cities, and sometimes the city they're at says, well, that's not the way we want it. So it's kind of hard to say whose fault it is. It's just that it is a problem that needs to be changed. And usually we don't have a lot of change orders, so we'll work with them and pay the change order because it's wrong. It needs to be moved. It needs to be moved. The good thing is that it wasn't already in place. They caught it before any work was done. But because of the second chiller needs to be moved and reconfigured, they have to do additional lines to it, additional distance. But this is still under negotiation. We'll still try to see what else they can offer.
What type of formula was used to decide what percentage PBK was going to pay?
The way it works is if something's left out of a plan, and then later, we need to add this in there, we do a change order. And because it's not in the plans. If it's in the plans, then it was competitively bid. So you would assume it would have cost you a little less if it was in the plans. If you need to do a change order, you have the subcontractors there, well, they'll try to get as much as they can, charge a little more. And we have to really look at it to see if it's a fair cost or not. And the architects and engineers help us, hey, that $1,000 for the electrical switches, in our experience, it shouldn't cost more than $300-400. Why are you charging $1,000? And they kind of we'll try to work it out. But we do know you pay a little bit more on change orders than you would if it was originally in the plans. It could be anywhere from 10 to 15 to 25% higher. It all depends what we negotiate. And they're saying, well, it probably cost you 10% more because if it would have been in the plans, it would have cost you that much more anyway. So
the reason I'm asking, Mr. Tapia, is because I think it's important for the public to understand that regardless of whether PBK left it out or whoever was responsible, I mean, BISD was going to have to pay for this at one point or another. I mean, it's material that should have been originally put into the budget. It wasn't, or it wasn't put on the architectural design. But it's something that BISD was going to pay no matter no matter what.
Right,
And
before
we're-
or after.
And we're looking at this 10%, as like you said, the difference from maybe a few months ago, or several months ago, or a year ago, the material might have been a little bit less expensive compared to now.
That's,
Is that a fair?
that's basically the way it works, yes. The next item is, there was on one or two sides of the building, the plumbing engineer left out they call them fire hydrants, but they're actually your water hose connections. If your custodians want to wash windows or they want to water something, well, there's no water connections. So we had to go back and add 6 more connections. It's not in the plans, you didn't pay for it. I mean, we don't have to put them in, but we want them. Well, this is how much it's going to cost. The problem is the walls were already up. So to do that, they have to go tear out sheetrock to run them down the lines so the plumber can work and push them back out to the outside. So the demolition work is, they broke it down, the sheetrock work, to tear the sheetrock down, let the plumber work, and then go back and patch the sheetrock, tape and float, paint it, and put it back the way it was. It's $3,514. That's something that we shouldn't pay for, because if it would have been put in the way it's supposed to have been, we wouldn't have to pay to go back and demolish something. PBK says we'll pay 100% of the demo and repair work. That's $3,500 plus 10% of the overall amount. Well, of course, we think that's very fair, and we hope in the future things like this they'll pay 100%. And the last one is some VFDs are variable frequency drives. They have to do with like drives on the mechanical air conditioning systems. There was 4 that need to be installed that were left out. So 8,287. We need those to run the units. They put some different type of starters that are specified that don't work there. They need to be these special VFDs. So it's 8,000. 10% is 828. So just on these 4, if you add the architect's part, it'd be 4,958. Almost $5,000 the architect says they'll pay for this. So out of the total 27, it's like 18% that they're paying, if you do the math there. So these are some items, there's going to be more, but from the 10%, we may try to get 15%, see if we can get a little more money from them. But I think on the bigger items, if we see anyone, you're going to see some higher numbers from them. So we're going to keep negotiating with them on these. These are close to being finalized, but we just need attached drawings, sketches that we don't have. So we don't want to approve these or sign them until we get that information, and we still want to try to negotiate. We're going to go for 15%, see if they'll agree. So that's the issue where we are with the change orders. But other than that, we're able to tell them, proceed on your electrical switchgear, the main panels, do some. So some of the subs are back to work. They're trying to get back on track to stay on schedule. There's still a few more items to work out, but at least everybody's back working, and you see a lot of activity at the school. The front entrance, the street, curb and gutter, caliche has already been in place. You can see the fire hydrant from the fire loop. The landscape islands are being left out there. The exterior wall in the mini gym, it's already been with the waterproofing mastic they put on it. And you can see the green is the insulation board, and they'll start the brickwork on it, and the metal panel up on top. The dining hall, looking into the actual kitchen, they're already starting to do the terrazzo flooring. You can see they got the ceiling grid up on top, some ductwork, sheetrock finish. So they're pretty far ahead. The kitchen with some of the exhausts, hoods over that will be where the kitchen equipment goes. That's the dining hall looking out the windows into a hallway that then leads to the outside. If you've been to Ben Bright Elementary, this school's identical, and you'll see the exact same detail on it. Tile work's already being put in. The library has a nice decor in the middle with a lighting system. Some of the rooms already have drop ceiling, sheetrock, paint, millwork. They just need floor tile and the drop ceilings, and they're pretty far advanced on the classrooms. Some of the hallways already, again, finished out with the metal frames, the sheetrock work. Some of the drop ceilings been done in the back part of that hallway. They just need to work on this area. The Kiva room, which we have a similar one right over here, we'll show you when we do a tour. It's basically a reading room for the kids where they sit down and somebody can read to them. That's from the library inside looking out towards the hallway. Some decorative paint's already been done on the high areas. Another view of the library. So you can see that it's moving, and it's back on track. The main things were with the electrical, mechanical components, and they already got some directives on how to proceed in some of the areas they were kind of stopped on, saying we can't work until we get answers, and they've gotten some answers. A few more things we need to iron out, but we'll make more progress in the next couple of weeks. So when we meet with you next time, we should have a very clear idea of what all the final costs are and what we negotiated. The middle school is right across, still doing some steel framework. It's not a two-story structure. There is a second story, but it's basically for your mechanical systems. It's a mezzanine for your mechanical equipment, but everything else is on the first floor. They're starting the block work, the weatherproofing on the outside. The interior walls are starting to be put up. The hallways. And this school has till May of 2010, so they still got a good 9 months, so they got plenty of time to finish the school. The dining hall, stage area. Some hallways, they're already starting to do some prime work on some of the hallways that are more advanced. This is just that crossing hallways. They have this decorative piece that changes the height, the elevation from the higher to the lower ceiling, and just a little decorative node there at the intersection. And some of the grade work's already starting on the asphalt. They did a brick wall sample of what the brickwork's going to look like, and I believe we approved it with very minor changes. The entry canopies. Just another view of the concrete drives and a view back towards the street. So overall, at 143, the architect's fee was $446,000. We paid him 70%, which is $312,000. And that's both schools combined. I'm sorry, that's just the elementary. The middle school split up $1.2 million. We've paid them $840,000, so there's also 70%. The contractor has both schools under one contract for $31.5 million. We've paid 17, so we're at 55%. The elementary by itself is probably more like 70% complete, 75% complete. But you throw in the middle school and they're about 55%. Mittie Pullam, this is the school we're at. If you recognize it, that's the front of the school where you came in. They've already done the asphalt work, some of the ADA striping and painting, sidewalks, fencing. Some of the landscaping's already in with palm trees and some oak trees. Light poles. Another view of the drive. This is going to be the parent drop-off and visitor parking. It's another view of the same entrance with the a pickup area with covered canopy. On the side, we have the teachers' parking and a bus loop coming out of the two classroom wings. And there's another classroom wing that leads out to the mini gym that we'll see when we do our tour. But you can see the roof systems are all finished out, some of the canopies. They're just working on the landscaping. It's a view of the courtyard where the mechanical and the systems are and the entry to the kitchen. And this is coming out of the, actually the area right outside the window here, coming out of the cafeteria. The dining hall you see when we tour it already has a lot of color with the paint work and the tile work and the stage. There's another view. The dining hall has 3 vaulted ceilings. The hallways are already finished out with the drop ceiling, the paint, the flooring, all the finished work. This is the library we're in right now. They did have it covered with cardboard paper because they were still doing some painting and some work on the millwork. They didn't want to, they're trying to protect the carpet, but because of this meeting, they took it off. Some of the sidewalk work outside, some of the grading on the landscaping, and the mini gym. Restrooms, a lot of the restrooms are finished out with tile and shower stalls. So the architect's been, of the $630,000 fee, they've been paid $595, so they're 95%. We're very close from accepting this school. And the contractor of $11.9 million, we've paid them $10.5, 88%. That's with the retainage we're holding, so they're really more like 93%, 94%. And that's all I have on this school. We'll proceed with the next ones, and then we'll talk more about this school when we do the tour. The last meeting we had, we met at Egly Elementary, the wing with the landscaping. We toured it. Those of you that were there, very familiar with it, but those that didn't show up, it was a very nice tour. Everybody was very happy with the building. And nice landscaping work. The little courtyard out of the library looking at the landscaped area. They have little reading areas inside. You look out the window and you see nice landscape area. Very colorful floors that the principal was very happy with for an elementary school. Again, some of the classrooms with the color on the tile and millwork and cubby holes. The library where we met, they have a simulated tree in the middle with very nice decorative light fixtures hanging from them. Computer rooms. The hallways with the drinking fountains and the tile on the restrooms. Part of that project are the three wings, Egly, Perez, Palm Grove. This is Palm Grove. And this building's already been accepted. The principal's already moving in furniture. Some of the rooms are already set up. The teachers have been showing up, setting up their own rooms. The hallway, this hallway had some numbers in the tile instead of decorative patterns. I believe that was a work area. Storage areas, restrooms with drinking fountains, restrooms with the stalls, all the tile work's finished out. And this is Perez. This is the last one of that wing that we have not accepted. They'll probably be ready in about another month, probably the first week of school. So we'll try to target, if not the second board meeting of September, to accept this wing. The library is very similar in design to Egly. It's going to have the same features, the same library, simulated tree look with a nice computer lab, which is what that is. They've already got the roof and the rooftop units already finished out. The classrooms just need drop ceilings, they need floor tiles. So they're about 3 weeks out from finishing. Another view of a classroom. So this project for the designers, Mata Villarreal Garcia, is $340,000. We've paid $330,000, so they're at 97%. They're almost done. The contractor is $5.7 million. We've paid $4.7. They're at 83%. With the 5% retainage, they're more like 88, 89%. Canales Wing is a separate project, but it's by the same architectural firm of Mata Villarreal Garcia. It's already the exterior block being put on, which is similar to the Egly Perez architecture that you saw, but this block has more of a finished color than that natural stone that we saw at Egly that everybody wants to color, but the architect said that's the finished product, that's the look we wanted. This one has a different color block. It's got the metal decking, which still means they need to put the insulation boards on there and the roofing materials, the final cap sheet. So they still got some work to do on the roof. They already started with some of the ISO board with the black felt, and then on top of that, they put it's going to be that vinyl roof that we have at Hannah. Same system. So this architect fee was $339,000. We've paid $330,000, again, 97%. Oh, that's Wilson Construction again. That was not JDS. They're about 55% complete. We put the wrong sheet in there. The roofing project I just talked about, Hannah, Falkstell, and Hardin. Falkstell and Hardin are finished, but at Hannah we have that problem we talked about last time in the moisture. That's that vinyl roof that we have on P building. I do have some information on page 25 of your booklet. Just showing you some reports that's going back and forth between the architect and the contractor of the It's an email, basically, the architect saying that he went out and took some moisture readings. Because remember, they put some fans that are stuck in the air trying to dry out the lightweight concrete, which has moisture on it. And as long as you have the high moisture, the manufacturer won't give us a warranty. So instead of tearing out the whole system and having to tear out the lightweight concrete and re-pour it and do everything from scratch, they're trying a drying system that will vent out with these power vents. And so they've been on for about two and a half weeks now, and they went out and took some readings. And on page 26, the architect gave us this little graph with a table, which I didn't have a chance to sit down and talk to him about it. But it's a little confusing to me. I'm not sure what it means, but we're going to meet Monday or Tuesday of next week with the architect to see. He can tell us exactly what this means. Basically, he says that there are some drying areas. The perimeter areas are drying, but the closer you get to the middle where the vents are, the moisture has actually gone higher in some of those areas. So it's working, but in the middle areas, it's actually gone up. And everyone has theories of what's happening and why. If you look at the next page, on page 27, basically what this says is the architect's thinking, well, you have air conditioning inside, and if some of the cold air is rising and hitting the metal deck underneath, then you have the very hot roof on top, you could be causing some condensation, and maybe that's creating extra moisture. But that's if they use the drop ceiling as a plenum where you have all the air conditioning returning into that space. My staff went out there, and that's not the case. They have return duct. You actually have ductwork that takes the air back, so it's contained within the ductwork. It's not a cooler plenum, it's actually hot, and you have your duct return. So we're not sure if that theory is going to pan out. The next page on 28, on the top of the page, is from Oscar Galvan, which is with the company. He says that, thanks for the report. The fact that it's more moisture around the new exhaust fan, it's EF, it's confirming that the system is working perfectly as he thinks it should work. The system first, it pulls the moisture to the exhaust fans, and then it expels it to the outside. The roof is drying already. Now that the roof is dry already, now the lightweight concrete is getting dry. This is very positive, and the measurements around the intakes are perfect, drying, we're getting there. So the contractor feels that's the way it's supposed to work, and another few weeks that it's gonna show lower numbers in the middle section where the moisture actually went up. They feel it's, well, we expected that and we're okay. The roofing consultant feels, well, we're not sure about that. So we'll find out in another 2-3 weeks if it's working. If it's not, then we're going to come to a head as to this is not working. We need to fix this. We need to go back and do a roof tear-off. The contractor saying, well, we took readings before when we started the project, and after we put the roofing on, and it was dry. And the architect's readings were that it was dry. But after the roof was put on, now there's moisture in the system. Well, how did the water get in there? The architect has some reports where there was some areas left, little gaps, little openings around the AC unit, some trims, and we had a lot of rain, and well, you didn't do a good job of temporarily sealing that, so water probably got in when it rained. Their issue is, no, we made every effort to secure that all those areas were closed up. And every time it rained, we checked with the school, we checked with the custodians. There was not one leak. There was not one leak reported in the building. If water would have got on the roof, it would have leaked inside. It would have stained drop ceilings, got the insulation wet. Water would have fell on the floor. So water didn't get in because we left it open because it would have rained inside. Yet there's no reports of any leaks on that roof. So we don't know how the roof is getting, how it got wet. So they both have valid arguments, but we're here in the middle saying, well, I don't know how it got wet, and I don't care. I want it fixed so I can get my warranty. So we may have to come to a mediation as to who's responsible for what. Can we prove because of the contractor's neglect they got wet? Or, hey, look, there was never any roof leaks. When they put the roof, it was dry. Now why it's got moisture? Maybe they took some wrong readings in the beginning. Everybody's kind of pointing fingers. It's your fault. No, it's not your fault. Nobody really knows. So we got some more investigative work to do on this as to if we have to fix it, who has to pay for what. All we know is we want a roof with a warranty because that's what we're paying for. So this is to be continued. This is another one of those, we'll have to wait and see how this plays out. So just some documentation to show you some of the reports that have come in.
Oscar, do you think it's going to be finished by the end of the month before the students go back to school?
No, that's only 2 weeks away, 2.5 weeks away.
So you
And,
don't foresee any?
So the only unfortunate thing is the building P that we know, which is this building that we know it had, a third of the building had moisture. We had already done a change order to tear out the lightweight insulation, which was dry, and they did say that, well, we didn't test it, it's our fault, and they're going to pay for all the re-roofing materials. Okay. But because we know the roof was wet, that lightweight concrete was no good, we would have had to tear it out anyway. Before they put the roof on, they should have tested it. It's wet, we were going to have to tear off that roof anyway and pay for it. But since they didn't test it, they put their roofing materials, and that's what they're going to have to eat. Okay. Well, they're saying, we can do the same on the other ones. I said, yeah, but some of the preliminary results were that those roofs were dry when they first tested them, so why are they wet now? Where this building, it was wet from the beginning, it was documented. So we can justify this one. We knew the roof was no good with the moisture, and it would have had to have been replaced anyway, but the other two, this shouldn't have happened. It was dry, so why is it wet now? So we lost the time because of these other ones, and well, if the drying system works, well then maybe we should try the drying system on this one and not pay the change order. Well, since we haven't gotten a settlement on that issue yet, we lost the summertime to do the tear off on this roof. So now we may have to wait, either work with the principal to relocate those students or wait for the Christmas break when it's 2 weeks off. But that's the rainy season too.
Yeah, it's coming. There's no way we can speed it up a little bit so we can finish before the end of the month, before the students goes back to school?
No, because we're going to take the readings in 2 weeks.
It's going to.
We have to wait 2 weeks anyway.
So it's going to be
the best thing will be to work with the principal to move those kids somewhere until, we may even have to move some portables there until we work on that. But on the other two roofs, if it turns out it's not drying, then we're going to have to make a decision of how do we pay, how much do we pay, and how much is the contractor responsible. But they're already saying, look, it wasn't wet before. When it rained, it didn't leak, so why is it our fault? We don't know why it's wet. So we'll have to bring that report to you next time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Has BISD done any feasibility studies on solar energy panels on top of the roof
Solar energy as far as,
for power,
I'm sorry?
for electricity type deal?
Electricity.
Solar power.
Solar power with the solar power panels. We've done some studies in the past, but the cost of the solar panels versus the payback was 20-some years. And by then, all the maintenance and work on it, the numbers didn't pan out. That was back 10, 15, 20 years ago. Today, the costs are coming down a little bit more. It's a little more attractive, but also we have some incentives from some state and federal programs for some rebates or incentives to subsidize some of the cost. We're still waiting for word on this economic stimulus package that's supposed to happen, that if we get some money from there, that the government expects for some of that money to be spent on energy efficient system, solar panels.
Some big roofs up there available for that type of program.
That's
would
correct.
Really fit in.
Right.
I would just.
Yes, Mr. Pitt.
Thank you.
Oscar, I have another good question. Going back to this campus, I noticed the school buses are going to be over here in the back. The only thing I didn't see on one of your pictures, there were any canopies at all for the protections of the kids.
Yes.
So
and
we're going to be putting some canopies or...
Okay, that's something that we have already talked to the principal about, and we're getting a price for canopies for that site. Since we're near the end of the project, we already know pretty much everything, any surprises, and there was very little that came up at this school. So we still have quite a bit of a contingency fund. Yes. So we're going to get a price to doing a canopy extension outward and a certain distance in front of the school. Okay. It's not going to be a big fancy one like the one up front, but it'll be a nice canopy that, like the one that's connecting to the mini gym.
As long as the students or kids have some kind of protection because of the bad weather, especially in winter.
Yes, we're going to get a price for that, and if it's a good price, we'll move forward with that. So that's where we are on the roofs. Stell and Falk, they're all finished. They're all dried in. Very good job on the roofs. This is a little bit older picture, but this has been finished out and this has been finished out, so that these roofs are completely done. That's at Falk, again, the gym and the cafeteria building and the band hall building. Another shot at the classroom wing at Falk. Same photos. And Al Jardín, there's one of the long wings that has brand new roof on top. These two roofs also have new roofs on top. They were really bad. That had that old gravel and it was all sliding off, and you had bare exposed concrete, and it was pretty bad. So we're very happy we got new roofs on these buildings. There's a little bit of debris they have to clean up here, but pretty much the roof's on. And we do have that white finish for the reflective to try to minimize the heat gain in the building that somebody mentioned at one of the previous meetings. El Jardín, that's a close-up view of one of the classroom wings. So the consultant is $163,000 fee. We've paid him $152,000. They're 93% complete. And the contractor was $2.5 million. We've paid him $2 million. So we're still holding. We had to revise their pay app because of this problem that if we find they're responsible and they have to eat some of the costs, we want to make sure we have some money. So we're still holding money. We had to cut back their pay app from $130,000 to about $50,000. And we're not going to pay any more until we find out what they're going to pay for, because we don't want to overpay and then it's too late. They're ahead of us. So that's something we're going to be keeping an eye on. The air conditioning projects I've mentioned many times. The Lopez one's complete. Package 2 was Oliveira, Clearwater, Garza, Martin, Lincoln Park, Pugnat, Resaca, and Villanueva. 100% complete. Have brand new 100% new air conditioning units. And the package we're at right now, the Brownsville Learning Academy, which is the old web downtown, 100% done. Russell's at about 85, Sharp's at about 90, Skinner 85, and Iturri 90. All the units are on the roof. They're working on the control systems and some sensors and things like that. And just some of the pictures of some of the rooftops that have been installed at the respective schools listed in the bottom. Just complete roof replacements, unit replacements. That's at Sharp and Skinner.
Mr. Tapia, do you have a way of comparing the expense of running these air conditioners previously and now that these are new units? Do you have a way of comparing the cost of operating them?
Yeah, we do have our maintenance department does some monitoring of that. We have actually here Mr. Santiago Otero from our maintenance department, who is works with energy management. He's an energy manager, and they get the billing, and they have a system where they enter all the billing, and they divide it by the square feet of the building, so they can get a cost per square foot of how much energy they're using per month or per year, because it's cyclical. In the winters they use more, and spring falls a little less, and summers, if they have summer school, gets really hot, so the prices rise. So there is some monitoring of that, so we can go back to what the cost per square foot were on electrical consumption prior to the units, but we got to let them run at least 6 months to 8 months to a year to have data to compare to the previous year. For example, in the past when I oversaw maintenance, Pace and Porter used to run at about $1 to $1.13 a square foot. So it's just, and then we compare it to the other high schools. Rivera was like at about 120, 125, so you can start comparing, but then there's a lot of variables. So one school's bigger than another school's insulated better than another building. They have different kind of roof systems. If you have a campus that has a lot of trees, you get a lot of shade, you don't have as much heat gain. So there's a lot of factors that you have to build into that. But there is some monitoring going on.
To my understanding, they're computerized, right? The ACs?
They're on digital controls, yes.
Control.
So on package 3, the engineer's fee was $210,000. We've paid $201,000, so they're 96%. The contractor, Central Air and Heat, was a $2.289 million project. We've paid them $1.8. We're holding 5% retainage, so 80%, but they're really more like 88%. Fire alarms, I've kind of got redundant on this. They're finished. It's the same fire alarms. No use showing you over and over again. just letting you know they're all 100% complete, so I won't be showing you these same pictures over and over again. Pending, we've gotten the fire department inspection. What we need to do is ADA inspections for the American with Disabilities Act compliance. We got to. I don't see Jerry here. I'm not sure. In 2 weeks, the consultant will inspect it. And usually they check the heights and they check are the strobes visual for all people in wheelchairs, things like that. There's certain things they check for. Sure. The engineer fee, $72,000. We've paid $71,500, so they're at 99%. Just got to get their final invoice on the next meeting, and they'll be closed out. The company, Metro Electric, $612,000. We've paid $544,000. We're holding the retainage, so probably at the next meeting we'll get the final pay app and zero them out. That was package 1. And package 2, it's $968,000. We've paid $891,000, 92%. Again, that's with retainage. Okay, we're at the financial report. We'll do when we come back. I think we're now, if there's no questions, we can get back on the agenda and we can talk about this elementary school here. Have any questions for the principal and his staff, if they're still here. If not, if somebody can call them. There they are. They're hiding in the corner. And that's my end of my presentation, and we can now talk about this elementary school. Back to you, Mr. Barbosa.
Anybody have any questions or?
I had one comment on the last topic. I saw some slides, Mr. Tapia, that are dated back in April. Just because we showed it to the public, if you could, for the next presentation, make sure some of those are updated and the roof beam and stuff.
Some of the photos?
I thought some of them dated back to April.
Okay.
And you mentioned some of the issues were addressed in the text just before, for documentation closure and all that.
Sure. Definitely.
So you want to go ahead and
Introduce.
Yes, introduction.
Yes, certainly.
You want, whatever you guys want, tell us what.
yeah, why don't you come in and introduce your staff and
Get on the mic.
that was,
Step up to the mic.
Yes, please introduce yourselves and your position, and also, and then after that, give us, your impression of the project and the school and how it's coming, and are there any things particularly to pay attention to or concerns you want to make sure that are still addressed before looking? I think this is the time that we can share this.
Okay, Mr. Hanson, I understand. My name's Jay Harris. Will be the principal of Pullam Elementary. This is Ms. Celadero Santos. She'll be my facilitator. Irma Segura on this side will be my assistant. And then in the background is Mr. Carlos Guerra, our assistant superintendent for the PACE cluster. In terms of the project, we're honored to be here. We have no qualms. Contractor has worked with us. We have no feelings other than we're elated to be here. We're just waiting for the keys on Monday so that we can actually get started and make this look like a place for children. This will be a place for children. Are there any questions from you guys?
Well, first, congratulations.
Oh, thank you, sir.
On your own personal opinions, do you feel that this campus is good for the students or especially the kids as well?
Once you walk the campus and see, we are so elated that everything that was put into this campus is something that we have always wanted. I mean, this was like being sent to heaven, for a lack of a better term, is that everything in terms of space, movement of students, being able to give the students everything that they want, the locations of everything in this building, for us is perfect. We have never seen anything built as complete as this school has been. Everything is perfect in terms of movement, the facilities, where everything is located. It's exceptional in our view. And this is our second time for opening a new school, so we know what it takes and what happens, and this is very much to our satisfaction.
Mr. Tapia, are you going to take us to the tour, or is the principal going to take us?
I'll take you, and I'll also introduce the project architects, and we have some representatives here from the contractor, and we'll do the tour in a second. I wanted to tell you about a calendar that we have in front of you that I handed out, just so you can get an idea on the schedule where we are. Obviously, you walk around, even in the entrance, we're not finished. I don't want anyone to think we're here because we're finished and we're here to do any kind of final walkthrough. We're not. Just so happens today's the monthly meeting, and if we waited till the next month, it'll be open and there'll be kids in here, so I thought this was a perfect opportunity. If you look at the 2009, July, then you have August. On August 17th, there's a square. You go to the log on the right-hand column of the square, it says staff development. And the 18th also staff development, and the 19th, which has a square and staff development. I think we have different people coming in at different times. Some people report on Monday, some Tuesday, some Wednesday.
Teachers report on Monday on the 17th.
Right, and then the in-services start.
Monday the 17th and Tuesday the 18th are campus staff development days, and on Wednesday the 19th is a district-wide staff development day. On Thursday and Friday are teacher work days. Those are days that the teachers will be in their classroom setting up for the school year.
So all these in-services you're talking about from the 17th through the 19th will be held away from here?
No,
They'll all be here? Okay. See, and that's very important because today's the 6th. The contractor feels that they can turn this building over to us by, let's say the 12th, August 12th. We can get a certificate of occupancy. We need a certificate of occupancy from the city so that the principal and the teachers can operate out of this building. If we don't have a certificate of occupancy, they cannot come in here, they cannot hold in services in here, or we'll get cited from the city. But according to the contractor, and Mr. Joyner's here, the project superintendent, is that by the 11th or 12th, we should have a certificate of occupancy in hand. Is that correct, Mr. Joyner? Yes. So hopefully we'll be in good shape. Now, we don't need a certificate of occupancy to move furniture in. We're going to start moving furniture in next, if not Monday, on Tuesday. First, we've already have the traders ready to roll in from JR or a furniture company out of San Antonio. They're going to come in, deliver the furniture, unpack it. They're going to assemble it on site. District personnel won't have to do that. We used to do that in the past. We're hiring companies to do a turnkey on this. First team told me that next week, not Monday, Tuesday, all the classroom furniture will be in, all the student desks. The following week, which is the week of the 17th through the 21st, as we said, when all the administration furniture will be in for all your student, all the teacher desks in the room, and all the administrative file cabinets and meeting tables and all kinds of administrative things. But Mr. Perez and I were talking earlier that we really need to move that up quicker if possible, maybe later next week or no later than Monday the following. So we wait too long, instead of having in-services, they're going to be trying to get ready, setting up their areas. And the teachers want to come in and set up their rooms, and they're going to be in in-services. And so it's going to be a challenge, but hopefully we can do it. So that's where we are. Any questions on the schedule?
I noticed a lot of wires sticking out from the ceiling. Is that going to be finished? I don't know what they are, but...
These wires here?
Yeah, there's a bunch of them
Where are
sticking
these
out.
wires from them?
Coat hangers.
Where are these wires?
Oh, like, they'll be here, I believe, the 17th. And these are special custom-made fixtures, and they will be here. Should be completed for.
You'll complete it by the due date, by the opening date? You'll have them ready by the opening date?
For school, yes.
Right now, they're turned off, there's no power to them. That's right. So they're not a safety issue.
You're cutting it close.
Yeah, looks like there's a lot to go yet.
Now, we also had a school board agenda Tuesday, and we had an agenda item. Normally, the board will accept the project as substantially complete. But since the next meeting is not until the 18th, that's too late. So we put an agenda item Tuesday to authorize, for the board to authorize the administration, us, to accept it when we feel it's good. They also want, at first, they were not going to approve the item because there's a punch list and we haven't heard from the bond committee and there's too many questions. So then I interjected and assured them that we're going to have a bond committee meeting this Thursday, which is today. And that the architects are here, Elizabeth and David from Genac Architects are here. They started their punch list yesterday. They already have a punch list developed. Their engineer working on a punch list to be finished by the end of the week. So they finally, and I said that we can't move in until we get a CO from the city. The fire department has to inspect it and approve it. You have the building inspector, the plumbing inspector, the mechanical inspector, and the electrical inspector. So there's a lot of people checking this. So I assured them that we would not open up the school unless there were safety issues. But the comments kind of alluded to, well, the bond company has to feel comfortable also. You don't have an agenda item on the 18th, but you will on the next meeting. So if the board has, if the bond committee inspect the final building, well, right now you can't do that because it's not finished. I'm wondering if maybe just throw an idea out there that this committee wants to set up a little subcommittee, maybe 3-4 people, that come inspect it late next week when we're going to possibly accept it. When we say we feel it's ready to be substantially complete and sign off on the paperwork, that we also have some members of the bond committee feel comfortable with that recommendation as well. Just to assure them that this committee was involved in that process. Right now it's like, well, they showed up, but it wasn't finished. They didn't really get a chance to have a say in it. Is that something you think would be a good idea, or you just want to wait till the next meeting in September 3rd? They're going to be in this building. I don't know if we want to come in.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I think from my perspective also, we reviewed the punch list today and add in any of our concerns. You know, first and foremost, from my perspective, I always look at safety as number one. That's right. Going around not seeing some construction done or lighting, you know, what is the plans in place between now and then to address it, and then come back at that time frame. We could actually reconvene in a whole group at the end, invite everybody, but whoever shows is more than welcome. I don't feel like I think it's right to say 3 people. I think everybody should be invited. And
I just threw an idea out there. Whatever you guys want to do is fine with me. All of you want to come, that's fine.
Good idea, like I said.
Just to make sure that we're notified.
Sure.
I want to make sure the lights
The
are.
board can know that you were involved in the final recommendation.
Make sure.
You felt comfortable with the building, good ready to go.
I did have a few more questions for the principal, because we're going to walk around with them and the architects and review the issues. But, you know, first and foremost, again, safety. Do you feel that the administration group, contractors and architects have taken in all of the safety codes and safety concerns possible you have experienced in your past and have addressed them in this facility design and construction?
Yes, once we accept it as complete, everything will be safety. Safety is first with us. I mean, we're not going to move anybody in here. If there's a danger for a single person, we're not going to move into this building. I mean, we know that everything has to be complete. There has to be, our kids are number one. Safety, security, everything will be in place before we will walk one child or one staff member into this building. I mean, we feel the, you know, as you guys look and as we have looked, the amazing, and Mr. Tapia will back it up, the amount of movement from day to day is, if we met yesterday, what we see tonight is not what we saw yesterday morning. And what will happen by tomorrow at this time has been, from day to day in the last week and a half, has been tremendous on the difference of what we have seen. And because again, sir, if it's not safety, we're not going to bring anybody into our building.
We're also, the project architects that are here, they're doing their punch list, and if they notice something that's considered a safety item, they'll certainly highlight it. We've also talked about their engineers when they're doing their inspections, on their punch list, any item that's considered a safety item, to highlight it, to make sure those items are addressed first.
I'd like to invite them up to the mic. I'd like to hear from the contractor and the architect. Do they also commit here to the administration and also to the public that every safety concern that is currently still in process, will be addressed by opening.
Yeah,
and before the final walk.
as Mr. Tapia mentioned, one of the things we discussed were the safety issues. So when we go through the punch list, those are the first items that will appear on the punch list to take care of. We understand there's going to be some minor things that we're going to find, but we've gone through with the contractor, we've talked about items like light fixtures and some of the items you'll see as you walk through that aren't complete. And we're assured that on their schedule, items will be in when they need to be in. So we feel confident that they should be able to get the job done.
Mr. Tapia, are there any concerns about the flow of traffic, maybe the need of speed bump placements or anything like that? Has that been looked at?
No, we did talk to Mr. Martin, my construction manager, talked to Robert Esparza from the city, traffic department. Is that what we talked about? Yes. And they didn't feel a need for flashers or speed bump because this is not a through, we're at the dead end of the street. But they are going to put a couple of signs on the road. Martin, what kind of signs did they recommend?
Well, actually, they were just going to have a school zone sign so they can identify that you're approaching a school zone. And the people were just coming from another project, and we're going to meet with them, so have a location on site where those signs are going to be. And what Mr. Tapia was saying, they feel that it's a dead end, so it doesn't have the need for a flasher or a traffic light or anything like that, but just to prevent the people or advise the people that is approaching a school zone. They were already in contact with the traffic department in the city.
I think since it's the new day, new campus, we could bring some security, especially just to help out control some of the traffic just in the event. People is going to get lost, they're going to get directions, and I think that should be very important, control the traffic.
Sir, I've been in contact with Chief Garcia, and he has promised us for the first few days there will be traffic control out in Gore and here on campus, just to make sure that everything flows correctly.
Just to be on the safe side.
Yes, sir.
We have failed to mention one thing, though, is that when this school opens, not only will Mittie Pullam be here, but half of Keller Elementary staff is going to be here as well. Because Keller's not open, they're going to keep half the people at Ituria, and you're going to help share some of that. Could you tell us about that, Mr. Harris?
Yes, Keller will be split into 3 locations. Here we will house the kinder, first, and second graders. Ituria will house the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and Ortiz will take their pre-K students. Temporarily until Keller is completed.
How many children are we expecting on opening school day?
For Pullam or for Keller or combined?
For Pullam.
For Pullam, our projected enrollment is right now a little bit over 400.
And how many children can totally be housed here?
This school is built for between 800 to 850.
That's very critical to get Keller open by January, because if you drove in, and even when you're driving out, take a look at the neighborhood, there's houses starting to be built up. When we started this school, there was only a handful. Now there's a couple dozen. So it's going to grow. So by the end of the year, you're going to be at 550 kids. So by Christmas, we better get the Keller kids out of here, or we're going to start having problems.
Mr. Tapia, on campus security, is there a fence around the whole perimeter of the campus?
There is a fence around the whole perimeter, but there's a couple of areas that we're going to add a couple more fences, because if you go to the gate of the parking lot's open, you come into the parking lot and you can actually walk around to the backside. So we're going to have, if anyone will walk around, we'll show you, we're going to put a couple more fences. That way anyone, even into the parking lots, can't get into the campus. You have to go through the front door, ring a buzzer, and that's the way the event set up. It's going to be identical with the other.
Will that be in place before?
It'll be very close. We're still trying to get a price. We're going to do a change order. And Mr. Joyner, I don't know if Martin's gotten with you on the location of the fences, but we need to start pricing them. And I think the architects are going to give you a little schedule, a drawing. Something else that we're going to be adding is next to the mini gym, we're going to have an outdoor playground area, asphalt area. It was not included in this project. The architect is used to the school does a mini gym. Well, that takes care of it. The outdoor playground is enclosed the other asphalt area be done with a couple of asphalt bumps.
Back to the security question again, the second part of my question also is the security of the campus. Would the fences and the additions planned be close to the opening and you're not 100% sure? That means you have to have backup plans in place before the opening. What backup plans are in place in case the fence and security is not 100% up and running?
What we understand, security, we will have cameras in place by that day. That will be 100% surveillance of the entire campus, inside and out. And that if the fence to the parking lot, then we will have to position some of our staff there as duty stations until we do have the fences in place. That way we're watching both through cameras and by personnel to be able to watch.
Are you going to have a security officer assigned to your campus?
We were told that they're in the process of doing that, and if we need one temporarily, I know we will get one here. But it will be ourselves too, just to monitor, because there's 2 locations where the fences, and once we go on the tour, you'll see where the fences need to be placed. And we'll have somebody there watching and making sure that no one enters the campus without going through the front entrance where we can monitor.
From my perspective, when we do the final walkthrough, if the fences and the security is not 100% ready and we're being pressured to sign up, the only way I will go to the board and provide approval is that there are appropriate measures in place and confirmed backup security presence that will be here for the protection of the children until, those matters are resolved. So when we do the walkthrough, if that's not in place visually, you need to confirm to me, at least me, and hopefully a lot of the other staff, that is a commitment to, the district community and the parents of it.
Is Chief, will Chief be invited to go to the final walkthrough?
Yes, actually, Mr. Armando was here representing the police department, and they're also will be involved in the walkthroughs with us. Armando, you can come up and tell us your role in, and when you open up schools, what role you play in inspecting the facility and safety.
Can Mr. Barbosa, question again, please?
No, I was asking if to make sure that somebody from the police department was going to be here available for the final walk, so they would be able to put the input that needed to be placed in place before we even reported back to the board, as Mr. Hernandez said.
Yes, that's why I'm here, to report back to Chief Garcia. All the questions that are being asked right now, I'm writing them down to take back to him. In regards to the other question that you had previous, we already have a security officer assigned here at the campus during the night till the morning, just to oversee that everything is fine. We do already have a strategy plan for the first days of school here for Pullam Elementary, where we're going to have police and security assigned to patrol the perimeter to make sure that the kids are safe and everything, but we already have the security measure in place as we speak, okay? So there will be people around here. We will have security in place all this time as they're taking place, and we are in contact with facilities as well as the construction managers as everything is taking place. And yes, I'm making notes to make sure that I take this back to Chief Garcia tomorrow.
Armando, does this security is going to be temporarily, or is going to be for until the total construction be complete?
Well, until the total construction is complete, overall. That's why we have somebody right now in place, just to make sure that we don't have no graffiti in place, we don't have anybody breaking in and everything, okay? And again, we're asking that everything be tested in regards to the alarm system, the cameras that are going to be in place, because all of that is going to be monitored through our police department. So we got to make sure that everything is in place and everything is functioning way before school starts.
Do all schools by board policy require a security officer full-time, or that's no longer the case?
Right now, we do have security officers at elementaries, middle schools, and high schools. How the plan is being developed right now with Chief Garcia along with the administration, that is a question he needs to answer, okay, in regards to that. But most of the elementaries do have a security officer on campus.
Full-time security?
Yes, that is correct.
How many members do you have in your force?
I'm sorry, sir?
How many members do you have in your force for the BISD?
We have overall combined with security police and security, we have about 130, 150 officers plus at this point of time.
So you have enough
24/7.
to do all the schools?
24/7, yes, sir. We
Good.
patrol the district 24/7.
Mr.
And we
Chairman,
have our dispatcher communication center is open 24/7 as well.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like your suggestion to be placed in the form of a motion.
For the security.
In other words, that unless,
Let me rephrase it. The motion would be that the administration commits to the board, bond oversight committee, and the public that appropriate security measures will be in place to protect the children 100%, whether it's the alarm systems and fencing or backup security guards until their primary measures in place. Security.
I so move.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. If you want to recess, motion to recess, and we can further discuss. Any other questions? Oversight committee meeting back to order. I believe we will start going over the financial summary report, but before we start, I figured we could go around the table and make some comments on the tour. And, first of all, from my perspective, I think the safety and the security comments we said earlier stand even more. We were able to see the fencing and the needs that the school have to incur before the opening, so I think we've discussed them, and I think it's very obvious what needs to be done. Also, I really like the school layout. From my perspective, I like all the hurricane resistant windows, or the high wind resistant windows, and that would be considered for a shelter in the community. In the future, I like that aspect. The rooms are very nice. The life skills room, the library, beautiful, the reading room, I think it's well done. So, from my perspective, I back the principal's comments. I think it's a very well done layout. I still think there's a lot of work to be done before the opening, but a lot of it is, patchwork, upgrades, new floor, new lighting, touch-ups, things of that nature, but I believe it's very achievable. So, I commend the administration and the contractor and everything for the work done so far. So great job.
All right, any other questions for the principal? Him and his staff would like to get going if there's no other questions.
I have no further questions.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Harris, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to mention that having, or working in this field like Oscar, I work in a similar position as Oscar, that I have all the confidence in the world that the city of Brownsville, Oscar and his staff, the current administration, the police department for BISD, wouldn't even consider making a recommendation to the board or to us unless every issue was completely resolved. So,
I'd just like to ensure our audience out there that sitting on this bond oversight committee, to assure them that they should be proud of how this the bonds have been set and all the construction that's going on throughout the district. It's a job very well done by Oscar and his staff in overcoming all the obstacles that they face, and with the new principals around and having their input, that they can be assured that they and be very proud of all of the new schools that are going up here in the Brownsville Independent School District and all. And I just want to personally congratulate you, and I'm sure on behalf of the board that y'all are doing an excellent job, Oscar.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, any other comments or? Okay. Let's move on to the financial summary report. Mr. Pullam.
thank you, Mr. Tapia. Good evening, everybody. Sorry, I apologize for missing last meeting, but I think we'll go over this report, and I think hopefully I'll answer some of your questions you had last month. Basically, I also passed out a draft of where we feel we can get the funds for the high school. We did get our arbitrage calculation back from the firm, and that's we'll go over that report when we get to the high school. On the first page, this here is Mittie Pullam, and you can see this is the financial statement. We had one payment to the architect for number 19, $13,258, and we had a payment to the Descon contractor, payment number 13 for $639,000. Basically, those are the two largest items that we paid on this project here.
This report also is in the back of your booklet.
48.
Page 48.
Page 48.
Any questions on location 142, which is this campus?
On this campus, was this the campus that we had to have the additional geotesting? Is that why there's such a big discrepancy to what was originally budgeted to the actual expense?
No, right now, what we did is when we've gone through and pretty much got some hard numbers for all the contractors and so forth, we have back, I believe it was in October, November, we came to this committee and we talked about shifting some funds over to the high school. That's why you see it went from $15 million down to $13.8 million. Now, we are keeping $300,000 in this project just in case we have some unexpected expenditures that do come up.
That's this school here, this school.
Yes.
For that $390,000 that's still remaining, is there any known plans at this time of funds that will be spent from that? Besides, fencing, things like that, nothing significant?
No, because the changes in the fencing and the asphalt we told you about, that's still being paid out of the contingency fund, which is still in the contract amount. That's not even touching the extra money.
So it's planned at this time for that, so we can see that.
That should be left over. So when we close out the project, any money left over, then we'll discuss as to where we should move them. But I know the high school is a big issue that needs some more money pushed its way.
Okay. On the next page, this is Keller Elementary, number 143. Basically, it's the same format. We had no payment to the architect, and we had one payment to Scoggins Contractor, number 11, for just shy of $1.1 million. And again, you can see we have about $270,000 left. We're leaving there just in case there are some unexpected expenditures to come up here before it's finished.
That money probably will be used to help with some of those streets, that lot that we're buying. If we buy it closed and we can do that street extension, that probably, this money will help pay for some of that. That's not in the contract.
The next page is Manzano Middle School, which is location 155. At the bottom right-hand corner, or let's say we had only one payment for number 11 for approximately $1.6 million to the contractor. Again, we're keeping about $300,000 left here just in case there are unexpected expenditures that we have before the project's done. Now, let me explain one area here, which is the third line down, is a contractor. Remember back in, I think it was October, November timeframe, we know there's going to be some costs that don't qualify for our instructional facilities allotment, which is the state assistance monies. And that's why you see at the very bottom line, $1.392 million we have budgeted. Those are for those items that do not qualify for IFA, such as your landscaping, any type of athletic fields, gymnasium and so forth. So that's why you'll see a negative number on the third line, but the money is actually budgeted down on the bottom line right now. Once we get hard numbers for the cost of these items, we're going to make a journal entry to move the actual expenditures from the third line down to the last line of that program. And in the end, it'll all balance itself out. Okay? And I think there was a question on this last month. Was that the question? Something didn't balance or something like that? There was a negative number?
Yeah, Mr. Gonzalez asked that question. Something didn't balance on. You asked the question. We said we could bring it back to you.
And again, this is a revised June report. because during the month of July, when we paid the invoices, because we changed fiscal periods, we make those June transactions because of those are services done in June. So we accrue it back into the June fiscal period. So that's why it says June revised.
I think Mr. Hanson asked that question because it was just on the way we were reading the report, the way we were reading it, it seemed like it was explaining it one way when in reality it was another way.
I was confused on that. Prepare an in-depth explanation for the payment discrepancy on page 28 from version 2 for Manzano. That was the question I was asked. I thought it was maybe a mistake.
I'm not sure, but anyway, this is, like I said, I apologize for not being here, but this is the updated numbers for June 2009. And again, the reason why you see that 1.3 negative is because when we get hard numbers for these non-qualifying IFA costs, we'll bring those down to the last row. Yes, yes, but they're under the bond, but they don't, all these bond projects were part of an instructional facilities allotment, which again is that state assistance. Some items don't qualify, so they have to be paid by other funds, and so we set it aside. Yes, and it's non-qualifying. Okay, any questions on that one? Okay, let's go to the next one. This is the high school. I passed out a form to each one, and back in, let me see the date of this. Yeah, back in October of 2008, we discussed this pretty much in depth. And this is the analysis of all these projects and the instructional facilities allotment or the bond issue. You can see that on column B is the actual propositions for each project as we had passed in the bond issue. Column C are estimated costs for these projects. The two elementary schools are going to cost approximately $28.2 million. And I'm going to go across the page. We have non-qualifying costs for the elementary schools of about $159,000, and that could be the landscaping, the sprinkler systems, and so forth. So the total cost of the two elementary schools are approximately $28.3 million. Well, that leaves a difference that we can transfer to the high school of $1.6 million. Because those funds, we've completed both elementary schools, or we have funds available for them. We even have some extra funds there in those elementary schools. So the remaining funds, we talked about moving to the high school to help fund that. Same thing with the Proposition 2, which is your middle school. Qualifying costs are $20.3 million. Non-qualifying, which we talked about earlier, $1.4 million. Total cost of the middle school at that estimate is $21.7 million. Again, because we have a $25 million budget, the remaining funds can be moved over to the high school. Again, we have completed, or we have totally obligated our middle school funds, so we can move those funds. In Proposition 4, we haven't looked at on the report yet, but we'll get to that. Anyway, again, total qualifying cost, or about $29.9, $95,000 is non-qualifying. Again, those are some of the landscaping around the new wings that we have built. Total project cost $30 million. So we basically have utilized all the $30 million of that. Now, also back in October, we were getting what we call our arbitrage calculation. Arbitrage is basically interest that you've earned above our debt interest rate that we're paying. We were earning 4.75% for these funds, and our arbitrage rate is 4.15%. So it's that, 60 basis points that we have to pay an arbitrage rate on. Now, back then, we weren't really sure, so we were very conservative. I was very conservative. We can only use $5 million of these interest funds for this project. Well, we got our arbitrage calculation back. Total interest earned through December of 2008, and I have a footnote at the bottom there, was approximately $13 million. We've earned on interest from these $135 million bonds. The arbitrage came back, and we have to set up a liability for about $2.2 million. That's what we're going to have to pay the IRS once these bonds are finished and finalized. So the remaining funds can go back into these projects. So what we're going to do, and that's that $11 million you see on column I, we can put that $11 million back into the high school to help fund some of these other projects where we were basically under budget, if you want to call it. Because we had $50 million for budgeted in the Proposition 3, but our costs were $65 million. So that's going to help us offset the $15 million difference.
And Mr. Tapia, there was some confusion last meeting by one of our public members. And if we just go over it briefly, I know we've gone over it several times, but I've had people also ask me the same question: is for Proposition 3, the budget, the funding was $50 million, yet the cost was $65 million. And I know we've gone over it several times, but if you don't mind just explaining it briefly again, where we're getting those additional $15 million to complete the project.
I think that's exactly what Tony
Okay.
was going through right now. He can explain a little better.
Okay, basically, let's go to column F. We're going to get $1.6 million from the elementary schools, which is Proposition 1. We're going to get $3.3 million from the middle school, which is Proposition 2. Now, we're short $15 million in the high school. So basically, overall, we're short $10 million, okay? From the 1997 bond issue of the $125 million in 1997, $100 million. We still have some residual interest that is still sitting in an investment account, and that's about tune of $3.5 million.
How much, Tony? How much?
$3.5 million, and that's on column H. Again, those funds are residual interest that has been earned, and it's just sitting there, and we want to utilize it so we can get it all off our books. We can our final arbitrage calculation with the IRS, and we'll put those to rest. So that's $3.5 million that's going to go into the high school. And then the $11 million from the interest from this 2006 bonds is going to go into the high school. So overall, we're going to have an excess of $4.4 million that we can use to help fund some of the other items in the high school that we don't have yet.
Like the football, soccer, track. Concession stand, those things that were left out because of the value engineering, we can add those back in.
Again, they're footnoted at the bottom, some of these items that are not, that were not part of the original contract.
One of the questions that I might, at the end, that I might ask, we have other elementaries that might need canopy, and some of the kids are getting wet. I know some of the parents have brought up to my attention, maybe we can incorporate, I know there are a few elementaries as well. And I think, in my opinion, I don't think it would be then very expensive. That's something that we might consider at the end when all this is done.
Do we have cost projections yet, Oscar, for all the projects that we still want to complete at the high school, like the football field and track?
Yes, actually, right now we're working on a change order cost from the contractor, and we're looking at about just under $2.6 million to complete everything else that was taken out, except for the ag building that we're not going to do. So about $2.6 million is what's going to take.
So even after that, we'll have maybe about $1.8 million still to distribute amongst the elementaries or any of the bond projects?
About 1.8.
And again, this is interest earned only through December 2008. So we're sitting here, what, 9-10 months later, and we're still earning interest on those funds and investments. So
a little more money.
Right, there'll be a little bit more money.
As you spend it, you'll be withdrawing out monthly as you need it.
Yes, we're withdrawing from the investment fund monthly, but so our interest is going to start getting smaller and smaller. So again,
On here, you don't have the calculation for the taxes you have to pay for the
I'm sorry, excuse me?
The taxes you have to pay for that.
Yeah, about 2.2 million is our liability as of December.
Oh, okay.
As of December of 2008.
So it's going to cost you 2.2.
Correct.
For the 14.5 million.
Do we have some time constraint?
We're only going to end up with $2 million.
Oh, no, I've already pulled the $2 million out of the 11.
2.3 million, is that a payback too? So is that about 11 left?
Yeah, that's the 11 that we can't put back in the projects. The $2 million, we've already set up an entry to set that up as a liability in our general ledger.
That's the 11 that he moves to column I. 11 million.
Again, it's a source of revenue for these projects. Mr. Pena.
I know this is all bond money, but do we have enough? And I know we asked you this question before concerning furnishing the campuses, the elementaries, the high school. I know it's going to be in the millions of dollars. Do we have enough money on the budget so we can purchase the furniture?
What we've talked about in the past is using our local maintenance fund balance for that, just as we did with the 3 elementary schools that are opening up this September, well, this one in September and then October, and I think later on this year. Again, we planned that from the very beginning to use fund balance for that.
All right.
So, yes. We'd like to put this money back into the projects themselves. Okay. Good.
I'd like for you to be very clear about the fact that we have a high school that the bond issue was for 50 million. We're spending 65 million. I understand you explained that the money is there. I'd like for you to clarify it, because when you have a budget item of 65,000, the bond issue is for 50,000. We were betting on the fact that we would have these funds based upon accounting principles. Now you're saying we do have the $15 million to complete the high school. And I want that clear concerning the source of those funds briefly.
Yes, sir. Okay. Yes, we're basically, the high school was $15 million short. We're going to be able to pull approximately, what is that?
Okay, wait a minute, Tony, before you go a little further. The high school is not 15 million short. It was 50 million, but we increased it and added more to the high school that cost it to be at 65. Because the original bond cost was 50 million.
Yes.
That was the original task.
Yes.
So we can't really say that we're 15 short. We just extended it longer, and we're going to be able to use this money here to make the difference so that we don't go into our fund balance.
Correct. Yeah, the 15 million that we're going to need is going to be $5 million from the other projects, and then $11 million from the interest that has been earned on the 135 million since its inception from about October 2006.
Thank you.
Are there any time constraints with the 1997 bond interest?
I'm sorry, excuse me?
Are there any time constraints on the expenditure of the 1997?
These should have been spent. Again, we are probably in the last couple of years before we have to finalize the arbitrage and pay the IRS. We've already paid them before, but now it's coming up on 10, well, we just did a 10-year. Now we got to do it here in another 5 years or 4 years.
But we're looking to hopefully spend it all?
Best thing to do is we need to get it paid, get rid of those funds. That way, our arbitrage calculation can be done, and we're finalized with that bond issue. Okay, so that's basically how we're going to fund the high school. Okay, any questions on this form? Yes, sir.
I'll just walk through slowly. If I say something incorrect, just, interrupting. We started off with a proposition proposal and approval for $135 million, right?
Yes.
And the total project, once we got all of the quotes, came in at $145 million, which is what we plan on spending today. So there's a net of approximately $10 million that we have to, in order to finish the project.
Correct.
Of that $10 million, in order to pay for that, and to answer any questions the public may have, we didn't put it on the screen, and I'm not sure if it had it over, but $3.5 million of that $10 million comes from bond interest, the 1997 bond interest.
Correct.
Of which you've already paid the arbitrage liability?
Yes.
Okay. Then there's another $11 million coming from the $135 million bond interest in 2006, of which, I'm sorry, it's $13.3 million, and 2.2 is the estimated arbitrage liability.
Correct.
When do you pay that?
We won't have to pay it until 2011. We've already set it up as a liability in our general ledger, so we're ready to pay it.
It's going to stay there, you're not going to spend it?
No.
Try to go after it in 2011?
No, sir. We set it up as a liability. It will stay there and carry forward until 2011.
It's in the reserve already.
Yes.
So the interest, $14.5 million, and we have a deficit of $10 million, so we're approximately $4.4 million favorable, or that's what we have left over in order to finish anything else we want to do.
Correct.
For the core proposition. But right now, the concern is, finish a new high school, when we reviewed it, and you outlined it here, football, soccer field, concession building, restaurant, weather track, sprinklers, the field, et cetera. You guys are estimating $7 to $7.5 million to finish that project, of which we only have $4.4 million available. Is that correct, Steve?
No.
Okay.
I'm not sure where the 7.5 came from.
That was,
The last statement.
that was an estimate.
Oh, that was with the ag building.
Right, that was, I was just
We're
saying,
going to take the ag building out.
right, the ag building's coming out.
So it's only going to cost us $2.6 million to finish everything but the ag building.
Okay, so can you tell us in the next meeting more descriptive breakdown of what is still left to be spent that matches up with the available $4.4 million estimated funds that came from the interest?
Actually, today I got a cost
You're
proposal.
saying it's 2.
I got a cost proposal today from Wilson Construction in the high school, and they're hard numbers, and I'll include that in the report for the next.
What did you say it was
2.6.
2.6? So you're close to 1.8.
1.8.
We're still probably $1.5 million left over from the interest.
Correct.
What is the plan with that? Keep it,
Again, right now,
or is it for?
It would probably come for some of the furniture.
right now, we haven't really put plans to those funds yet.
Mr. Fuller, I'm sorry. I know Mr. Penny had made mention about the canopies at the different elementary schools, and yes, that's important, and I do agree with that. But weren't these, when these proposals were set up, they were specific proposals? So any money left over, we just can't arbitrarily go back and start using them. Many campuses, they have to be for bond-related projects. Am I correct, or am I missing something?
Basically, on the covenants, your main obligation was to do the projects as listed in the propositions. You had to do the 2 middle schools, you had to do the elementary school, you had to do the high school, and you had to do all the upgrades to the fire alarms, the wings, the re-roofing projects, and HVAC.
So once that's completed, then the school district can use it as it sees fit?
Now, there's a process we're going to have to go through. We need to just put some articles in the newspaper, and that way the public knows that now we have finished, or with the elementary schools, we've finished with the middle school, high school, and all the upgrades and renovations and wings. Now we do have funds left over, and there's a plan that we need to put in place for these.
Thank you.
The 1.45 million we end up, that comes from the bond interest, what I get from that comment is there are very small restrictions. It can still be spent.
These funds need to go back into the bond issue. We cannot transfer them to our general operating fund. They need to go back into.
Anything related to the bond?
No, you can even expand it out.
You can expand
Yeah. Once you've done your obligation within your propositions, which we have, or we're just practically there, now we can just, it's a matter of a process that we need to follow to go and announce it to the public, put advertisements. We need to work with our bond counsel. That way it's in their files what we're going to do. We have funds available. And so it's a process, but yes, it has to go back into the bond projects or the bond issue itself.
It's a report that we have to let the public know, especially what is the difference and how much we have on hand.
Correct. Now, if we were trying to change something, then that's a
Yeah.
whole different process. Now you get into the legalities, because now you're not doing what the proposition said at the beginning. But we've already done our obligation of the proposals, and now we're just expanding whatever it may be to be determined what we want to do with the excess funds.
I think it's very important for this committee to know where every dollar goes. So, for that part of the project, the interest and what's going to be spent with that, we carry that through this presentation to track, where that's going. If there's 1, 2, 3, or 4 million left over from the interest, and we need to know what the plans are for that.
Well, right now, the main concern I had was the arbitrage calculation. What funds were we going to have available for the high schools? Now we've got that done. Now we can see where we're going forward here. That was my main concern. I was very conservative back in October with $5 million. I'd rather be too conservative than on the other side, and then we're scaling back. So that's why I put 5.
6 or 7%?
Excuse me, what?
6 or 7% of the 2006 bond interest?
If you want to look at it that way, yes. Again, we're still earning interest. Right now, overall, there may be $40 million left over. We've drawn down every month probably $6 to $6.5 million. So We're about $40 million.
The interest was as of December 2008?
Right now, we've got it invested at 0.7. Again, if you know the interest rates, which we had a very long discussion with our financial advisors on this issue. We could stretch it out further, but we've only got $40 million left. The projects are coming to the close. The high schools are coming to close. The middle schools. And when I say close, we're within 10 months out. By keeping it locally, or I don't want to say locally, but by keeping it at a lower interest rate, it's going to help us in the long run, because we may be even to recoup some of that 2.2 we had to set aside. So that's why they said, you're so close to being finished, just go ahead and keep it in a lower interest rate, and it may help you in the next arbitrage calculation.
When does the next arbitrage calculation occur? Is there a specific time it should be done?
Basically, what the law is, you need to do it once every 5 years, but to keep track, we're doing it once every year. Again, we've already set up with the arbitrage firm, and we're going to meet together, through emails. We're going to get together in January of 2010. We're going to send her the information for that 12-month period from January 2009 through December 2009, and then she's going to recalculate again. Again, it's just that way it's on file, it's readily available, and we get to put it on our general ledger right then and there. Okay, and there was one more. It's just the last one is the upgrades, which is Proposition 4. We've got a few left over at HVACs. I think there's a couple schools that are just kind of pending. And then the next one is the re-roofing. Again, I'll be sitting down discussing with Mr. Tapia where we stand on those, but this is the way it stands on the last one. And the last slide, any questions on this? I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make a request or a suggestion. Regarding the, on each project, apparently you know how much is going to be allocated for the high school, right? Maybe an annotation can be done on the bottom, or after each project, how much of that money from that project is going to be going to the high school. Because I could see, like, the questions he was asking, maybe, we can see where the $5 million are coming from for which project.
Okay, that's a good point. And this form does show it, but I'll go ahead and
on the actual.
I'll go ahead and incorporate those numbers into the spreadsheets here. Sure, no problem, ma'am.
Thank you.
And this.
If I read this correctly, it would be the non-qualifying line items on each proposition would be the ones that go forward.
Well, no. If you go back to this form here, the one I passed out on column F. Those are the numbers that we're transferring. $1.6 million from Proposition 1 and 3.3 from Proposition 2 will be going into the high school.
Mr. Philip, I'm just have a suggestion here. Whenever you have a question from the public here and sometimes you can't answer that question and you don't have the answer at that moment, this comes into the public with the KBSD right away. So is there a way that you can have that answer for the KBSD to insert that question that was answered, and you had the answer for that question, which was not transparent this time? Remember when you had that question answered? Would you be able to work with the KBSD and media and then insert your answer in the media so that will be able to clear every misunderstanding?
I'll work with Dr. Cisneros. We'll figure something out.
Okay.
Have I answered all the questions tonight? Okay. And then the last, that was the last one. Okay. That's it. We're done. This is just a summary report of all the propositions. Basic original budget, estimated budget. Again, those are the numbers you're going to see on this form I handed out. Expenditures year to date. Now that's from the inception of the project, and then the status of it. And you can see I just put on the bottom exactly what Proposition 1, 2, and 3, 4 are.
So in a nutshell, we're in good shape financially.
Yes, in the bond issue, yes, we are. What really helped us is when we went into a flex repo agreement, we invested at 4.75 and our arbitrage was 4.15. So we invested very well. We got good rates.
In fact, you put it on paper this time after all the discussions last year and a half. That's all fine and all, and this clarifies it for me, but I don't know if you can put it in the presentation, but to have this, and we'll track it every month as we progress, and we'll really see the end result.
Yes, oh yeah, we're going to keep this until these funds are exhausted. Now, that's the end of the,
Mr. Fuller, let me ask you one.
yes, sir.
Now, this has already been presented to the board.
No, this has not been.
Has not.
Okay, basically, these numbers, we just had this first meeting. We had a board meeting a couple nights ago, but no, it was not. So no, the board has not seen these, but on the next board meeting, there will be a presentation.
I'm taking from this that your last line item at 21 and 22 is incorrect. So, from the bond committee, that last statement is to be straight.
Yes, what I'll do,
Or should be updated based on your updated.
Take out the actual.
right, what I'll do is I'm going to take the ag building out and put $2.6 million in there. I'll probably add another line item just to keep track of where we were versus where we are now.
Okay, now, just for the purpose to make sure we don't get ahead of ourselves, you're going to present this to the board at the next board meeting?
On the 18th, we'll have a presentation, yes.
Okay. Are we going to be on that agenda? I don't want to be, make,
Are you talking the conference presentation that the board gives, or you have one item yourself that you're going to present?
One item myself.
Oh, you work?
Yeah, we need, yeah, we need to do that so we can tell them the
'cause
arbitrage.
I don't feel that we should be bringing it out with the board first before you do.
Yeah, we'll put,
But
Mike,
we would be able to say that we support what you're saying and what you're doing, but not to be able to.
I'll get Ms. Perez to put
Make it part of the board,
put ours
part
on
of our
first.
report.
we'll put ours on first, that way you come in after the conference presentations. Any other questions? All right, I thank you all very much, and thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to item number 6, old business. Issues, item number 7, new business. Any new business?
Well, I did have one under old business. If you look at the tab, the last page of your agenda, of your book list, there was a request by, I believe, Mr. Benyon. Yeah.
On the portables, I asked you.
About what?
About the portable.
Okay.
And what has been moved from the schools where we added wings.
That's correct, that's correct. That's correct.
As per Mr. Reatega today, they have moved 4 portables out of Villanueva. They moved them to Hannah High School, actually to where the old tennis courts are, to help special services have some more room there. And they also moved 1 portable from Villanueva to Lucio, so that's 5 portables they moved from Villanueva. Palm Grove, they moved 4 portables to Lopez High School, and Palm Grove, 1 portable, Southmost Elementary, 1 portable. So overall, they moved 10. I asked Mr. Arteaga, so what else do you have pending? Because there was a lot of portables we had to move out. He says, well, I got a big problem. The other portables remain here than the other schools. The principals don't want to give up the portables. They're fighting for them because they need them. That what happened before is certain teachers were doubled up, but now that they have the additional classrooms, now they're able to each have their own room. So they really need to keep some of those portables. He wants to wait till January when all the new schools, elementaries are open, all the wings are finished, and then I'll have a better idea of which portables to move. He wants to have a meeting with all the area superintendents to oversee all the principals to say, do you really need those portables, or can you let it go? Hopefully they can say, yes, I can give some more portables. I'm not saying this happens very often, but some schools may look at it in a numbers game, that if you go below a certain square footage, you'll lose a custodian, or you'll lose an assistant principal, or you'll lose a nurse. There's certain formulas based on the size of the school. So maybe it's not to their benefit to let portables go where they're right at that brink where if I lose 1 portable, 700 square feet, it knocks me below that number, and I lose staff. So I'm going to fight to keep that portable. We want to make sure that's not happening.
And
We'll keep an eye on it.
right, one of the reasons in the past that I have seen, especially they build or we build a new school, a new campus, and the second year, the third year, there are already portables as well. So that's not a good analysis based on the campus as well, and of course the appearance, it doesn't look very professional as well, especially for the kids as well. So given that information, we'll take that in consideration and let's see what happens in the next couple of months. Thank you, sir.
Any other old business?
I just want to end and let the community of Brownsville as well. We have injected over 100 million to the Brownsville area, and that's been helping out, especially in the economy, the way the economy is right now. And I know Mr. Fuller said that we have about, or he has about in the balance close to 40 million. So that's equivalent over 100 million that we have given to the local communities, to the jobs, participating, and I think this money has helped out the economy here in the Brownsville area a lot. Especially, I just want to let the community know. Thank you.
I had one other thing to ask, or to point out. As chairman, I'm starting to run into some conflicts with some other activities that I'm involved with, so it's causing me to be delayed to these meetings, and I believe it's unfair to the administration and the Oversight Committee here. So I've asked Mr. Barbosa to step up as acting chairman for the next 3 to 4 months. I will still remain on the Oversight Committee, but since I cannot be here 100%, I believe that it's not fair to you guys and the public and the administration to continue without having that commitment. I believe that the chairman's responsibility is absolutely critical to ensure that this meeting goes as planned and the group stays on time with the bonds and the plans and the timing keeps the ball rolling. So I think it's absolutely critical, and I will give 100% support to Mr. Barbosa. I will still remain on the team, but he has graciously accepted as he is the vice chairman, and then I believe in November timeframe there will be elections for the next round, I believe, as per the bylaws. So from that standpoint, any other?
Are we going to have a phone call or a follow-up on that possible walkthrough for next week?
Yes.
Yeah, we need to talk about that. I'm not sure if next week, but probably the 17th or 18th. What was today, the 6th? No, I would say the 14th, because on Monday, the 17th, a few people will start showing up, so I would say the 14th would be a good day to walk. I don't know how many people work, what time you can become available, but early in the morning is a good time.
Oscar, can you let us know at least a day in advance so we can prepare? I know it might be a different day, but let us know, and I'm assuming most of us will be here.
The date for the 14th?
It's on the 14th, for a fact.
Friday the 14th.
Friday, what time? Danny, you're joining here? Contractor, I would say maybe to give a little more time, maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Send us an email with the time so we would know exactly.
Let's do it
Okay?
for the 14th. Do I just invite everyone, and whoever can make it, makes it?
Well, please confirm. I'd like everybody to confirm.
And is that an official meeting? Do I need to post an agenda? No.
I don't know, do you post them when you have walkthroughs?
With the board, you do, because if it's 4 or more, there's a quorum, they have to post, but I'm not sure about this committee. Probably not.
Well, if you're going to look for this committee's recommendation for the board, it might be a good idea to post, since we're going to have to sit here and make it official.
A special call meeting.
To let the public.
But there'll have to be a quorum for you to take action. I'm sure there's going to be at least 9 members here, and that's during the working hours. Can I get 9 members?
Well, but I think if you post it as a committee,
A subcommittee?
To be able to meet, and then not necessarily appoint individuals, but to say a committee of the board will be present to follow up and make recommendations, and then that's it. And then whoever shows up, shows up.
Whoever shows up would be the committee that reports to this organization.
Mr. Tapia, in regards to posting this particular bond committee meeting, since we have a public audience, should that be posted so the public would know when we are going to meet and where?
Well, that's if we post an agenda, but I think they were saying they don't need to do that.
No, not for that next meeting, but for our regular meetings as a whole, because there's a public, I don't know that you said that you would actually post them or not. I know you have to do it for the school board.
Yeah, they post them.
They post
Yeah,
them.
they post them.
They post them.
They post these
Our
meetings?
meetings,
Okay.
Yeah, Anytime there's a quorum of 4 or more, the board has to vote. But it's a quasi.
But I would just to be on the safe
I think on
side.
this meeting, this was a posted meeting, and for the public was invited to show.
Yeah.
Since
And,
there-
we did the walkthrough. So this one was really a follow to make sure all of our concerns and final touches on the list that was discussed.
What we might be able to do is just recess until
Recess.
August the 14th. At 2 p.m. And then whoever's there is there.
You
No,
still need,
right, but I mean, that's what he's saying, that we don't necessarily need a quorum, but whoever is there will take the action of the committee, of the board, or the review board. Because we need to be able to make a recommendation to the board, and, that's what the board wants us to do. But if we can't get all 14, just like a committee, giving them the authority to do it.
that's right.
One more comment, Mr. Tapia. It might be a good idea if you give a summary or an explanation of the term substantial completion as far as construction is concerned, so that way there is no confusion on, from anybody on delaying our approval based on something that has nothing to do with the inside of the building.
There is a definition inside the AIA contract document that we basically what a substantial completion means that a building is substantially complete enough to be used for its original intended purpose, and that is to educate children. So as long as a building is sufficient enough to educate children in a safe environment, then we can have it substantially complete. We will have pending punch list items that are attached to that substantial completion form. There's a cracked block, there's a fixture that one hole doesn't work, there's a little tear on the rug, little things like that will be punch list, but that doesn't, substantial completion is just that, it's just substantially enough to occupy it. That doesn't mean 100% finished.
And if you don't have substantial completion, you're not going to have occupancy certificate from the city, am I correct?
Well,
No, so we can pass all city inspections. A city's not gonna give you a red tag and not pass it because there's a scratch on the wall or.
No, I'm saying, but the city, once the city says the building can be occupied, pretty much means exactly that, correct?
Well, definitely. We always try to get the CFO before we accept it as substantially complete, but we don't necessarily have to, but we do it as an informal policy. But we like to have short punch lists. We don't want to have a 24-page punch list. We have a short punch list. That's 6, 8, 10 pages. For a new school, that's very little. Just to clarify what substantial completion means from 100% complete.
Okay.
Ready to adjourn.
Me too.
So are we going to recess and then come back on August the 14th, or
2 p.m.
are you going, is it going to be, do we need a quorum for that
I believe we need
afternoon?
a quorum. My preference would be, and, we close this meeting, and I will just say, I'll appoint a subcommittee meeting, which Mr. Barbosa or myself will be there at the review, and anybody who else, I'll give them the responsibility to meet and provide a proposal that will go to the board.
Public comment. Public comment.
Yes. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
I didn't see anybody from the public to make comments, so that's why I suggested we adjourn. But I could.
Ready to go? Larry, are you ready to go?
Maybe.
Okay, not today.
Not today.
He's ready. So move.
But we did it during the regular